Then we have Eva, who says that she takes on other people's emotions more often without noticing quick enough. Yeah. So taking on other people's emotions, sometimes we label this as highly HSP or highly sensitive people. And I love highly sensitive people because for me, usually that's seen as something that we need to work through or we need to change, but I believe that these people are the psychologists, the healers, the coaches of the world, because only by identifying with someone's emotion, only by taking it as your own, are you capable to help another. And the help starts through that self-work. So taking that emotion on board, understanding, which is what Eva does in this case, she understands that this is not her emotion, but and then she says, yeah, I don't notice it quick enough. And that actually doesn't matter, because emotion is energy. And when you take it on board, when you take it as your own, the point is not to get rid of it as quickly as possible. There is a belief in the new age communities or in all these personal development communities that negative emotions are there for us to really quickly get rid of and rid ourselves from. But I don't believe that there is a path to enlightenment, so to speak, or a path towards self-improvement, or a path towards self-actualization that bypasses negative emotions. So by only looking to feel good, what we're doing, we're bypassing, and bypassing is going to hit back one way or another. It's going to come to bite us right back in the bum. Therefore, the idea is not about getting rid of that emotion very quickly. The idea is about processing it, about transforming it. It's about taking it on board, acknowledging that it's there. And the only way to discharge something negative is by becoming aware of it, acknowledging it, and allowing it to leave our bodies. And that's what happens with highly sensitive people. I don't know if you ever identify, so I'm sorry if I'm using this word, perhaps this is not the case for you, but I'm just using it more, bringing this subject towards a more collective, general level. And the problem with highly sensitive people is not that they take on the problem, but is that they do not know how to discharge it. They do not understand how to let it go and let it pass through their bodies. So their bodies become a vehicle versus a collector, a garbage bin for other people's emotions. You can take it on like a vacuum cleaner and just empty the bag from time to time. So in this case, if I would be measuring Eva's emotional intelligence, most likely I will see a very high level of empathy. And I would also see a balanced level of self-awareness, because otherwise this question would not occur. So she does become aware, it's just there is a delay in when she becomes aware. I assume, Eva, that these emotions, when you take them on, they're feeling uncomfortable. Can you share a little bit more about what the situation is exactly?
Yeah, so I'm quite amazed that you immediately went to HSP, because I have identified as an HSP already years ago. So that was exactly the right thing. And what happens usually is, you know, for me, it's very easy to sometimes I just reflect upon what I see, which is very easily seen for me, but not necessarily for the other party, right? And I feel like I often cross other people's boundaries because I just express what I see and based on what I feel, right? And so this sometimes goes so fast, and then people are taken aback or get upset, but which was not my intention at all. I really just expressed what I was seeing. And yeah, I work with it a lot, but I was commenting sometimes being an HSP, I work with being an HSP, but sometimes being an HSP works me. So, yeah. But sometimes you have to really manage it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. This is then what else we will see in your report probably, or most likely, is that there is this, again, this high level of self-expression, so you're quick to share, but there is a reduced level of assertiveness where the sharing is constructive or in a way that is helping the other person. So you're already at the second stage of emotional regulation. Here we were just about to figure out, okay, well, these are my reactions, how do I manage them? Now you are going into the next level where you're saying, okay, I've identified my reactions and I've identified my challenges. And I already also start doing that for other people. So that's usually the unexpressed healer inside, or the unexpressed coach. And this, usually with this kind of people, I would work in allowing them or developing platforms for you to be able to express this freely, unencumbered, and in a place, from a place where it is welcome, where it is desirable, where it is received. Because you will notice that most of the time when we want to share from with the best intentions, if we do so and people didn't ask for it, it is received with resistance. And sometimes that is even can feel like abuse to that person. It feels very intrusive when we do that sometimes. So it takes, of course, there is this good intention, and of course you're wanting to share your observations and your sensitivities, which are such a gift. You want to share with that person in order to help them. But if that person is not yet ready to receive that, it can feel like very intense on the system, and therefore can be received with rejection or can be received with negative emotion. So I would work with you, or I would advise you to develop a platform where this becomes healthy, where this becomes allowed and free in order to express yourself, such as, I don't know, maybe a vlog, or maybe another type of outlet where you can feel like, okay, people are expecting this, or they're wanting this, this is desired, this is welcome. And yeah, one of the tricky things is to learn to not share. So to know things and not tell them. It's like, I know exactly what you need right now. I know exactly what would help your life right now. But man, I'm going to hold that to myself, because as soon as I share it with you, you're going to resist it. And therefore, instead of helping you, I'm actually harming you or preventing you from getting to that next level where I'm trying to get you to. So, but what I would also work with is teaching you to learn to show from a feminine energy perspective, which is through examples, through nurturing, through empowerment, versus words, versus talking, right? Not from a mental place, but from a heart space. So when you learn to do that, sharing your sensitivities or the input that you're receiving from the environment, and then sharing your feedback, when you do that from a heart space, through example, through leading by example, then it's most likely to be received, more readily received than when we do that from a mental place, because our mind is built to reject foreign ideas. Therefore, it becomes counter-effective. Our desire to help is actually counter-effective because of that, because of the cognitive biases that we have in our brain. And there are hundreds of them, hundreds cognitive biases, which are preventing us from receiving the information, from allowing it to help us, and from using it constructively. So that's why when we speak from a heart place, or when we lead through example, it is received on a subliminal level. And yeah, that requires patience on your side in this case, Eva. It requires patience to know the truth but not tell them. Teach them how to fish but don't give them the fish, right? That's the analogy that comes to mind. And I will take another question that I received from Marta. If we are being belittled or put down, not once but regularly, does this call for cutting the person out or for more inner work? I am confused given the material out there on toxicity? Very good question. So I just need a moment to feel into this question, because I can hear almost the desperation that comes from all the teachings out there that are telling us it's your fault, right? The new age teachings or the personal development or the self-help can often make us feel as everything is your fault, right? And we're also here to do emotional self-regulation. So it may feel as if, oh, again, I have to do the work, and the other people, they're just allowed to act in whatever way, right? So I feel the pain in that. It's like, okay, how much more work can I be doing, and why doesn't everybody else actually collaborate on that? So yeah, I agree with you. Ideally, everybody would be doing work and everybody would be self-aware, and that's the perfect case scenario. But we don't live in such a world. So then your question contains the solution, and the answer to your question is yes, yes. Yes, yes. And what do I mean by that? Do we need to cut that person out? Well, you teach people how to behave with you. So if you consistently keep showing up in places where you are received with belittlement or petulance or perhaps aggression or lack of kindness, if you keep showing up for those people, well, how can you expect that you should not receive that behavior? If this is their language, if you're showing up in a community of Spanish speakers and they don't speak any other language, and you keep going to that community, can you be upset at the Spanish people for speaking Spanish? And can you be upset for not understanding, right? You wouldn't keep going if you don't understand the language, and if it's not compatible with your language. You would go to places where people understand you. So it's the same with belittling or behaviors that we receive from others. If there isn't a room for removing yourself or cutting yourself out of that environment, then it's always a good idea to do so. But do you have to do some inner work? Absolutely. On which subject then is your question? On which subject should I do this inner work? And I would say then, I would explore with you, where is this learned behavior coming from of attracting into your life people who treat you less than? Most likely, if I would do an emotional intelligence report with you, an inventory, we would find out something with respect to self-esteem and self-worth, because unfortunately, our worthiness is shown to us through the people and the way they behave or treat us. And in such case, belittling, that means there may be some belittling going on an inner level. So I would explore that with you, which parts of you are attracting this kind of behavior from the outside, so that you can learn to not do that to yourself on the inside. This is the resource that wants to be developed. And we're just not aware. Why does this pattern keep showing up to me? Why does this pattern keep showing up for me? And the answer for that is that there is a capability, a capacity, or a skill that is ready to be born, a shadow aspect that is ready to be brought into the light, a fragmented element of your personality that is ready to be integrated. However, it keeps showing up through other people and through their behaviors. So when you become aware of what this dynamic is showing you, and you do that inner work, what will happen is, inadvertently, this type of people will stop showing up in your reality. So this inner work is not to be done from a place of self-punishment or am I still not good enough? This inner work is to be done from a place of self-love, actually, and self-appreciation, self-preservation, right? So yes, if there is a toxic environment in your personal life, especially if there is abusive behaviors, by no means do you have to stay in that environment. Remove yourself straight away. Whether that will be a permanent removal, that's to be seen. Perhaps you need some time. Perhaps this dynamic is there because it's coming from both ways, or perhaps it's just this inner healing that will take care of the situation outside. So I hope this answers your question, Martha. I hope this helps. I will share with you, first of all, a sample of this inventory. Many of you have already participated in my workshop, so you already have it. But those of you who haven't seen this report, it's a very interesting, it's a sample. So basically the data in there is a dummy data, but it gives you an idea of the depth of analysis that you could receive from doing such an exercise. And then with that report, or from that report, we would have a fantastic baseline, which would help us break down various components of your behavior and improve on them, or develop the skills or the resources, or allow for this shadow elements or this fragmented, fractured parts of ourselves to be seen, acknowledged, reintegrated, right? So this is the type of work that I do in my coaching. So you can see the report in the link that I shared in the chat